Hi everyone, and welcome to CTL's Education Professional Development Series. My name is Amy Alcalisi, the EdTech Project Manager here at CTL. Thank you all for joining today, even if it's not live, if it's recorded. If you're not familiar with CTL, we've been headquartered in Portland, Oregon, providing innovative IT solutions to education and government customers for over 26 years. We're a Google for Education partner, specializing in rugged CTL Chromebooks, laptops, convertibles, two-in-ones, and tablets designed specifically for K-12 education. Over the last 3 years, we've worked with Google to introduce a line of CTL Chromebooks that have been recommended by PC Magazine as the best choice for Chromebooks in education. As part of our commitment to education, CTL offers free professional development webinars on a variety of topics that are relevant to K-12 EdTech. Today's webinar is NCLab Part 3, presented by Sheila Crawford-Bunch. She's the Director of Education at NCLab. But before we get started, I would like to review this interface so you know how to participate in today's event. You should see something that looks like this on your own desktop in the upper right-hand corner. You're listening in using your computer speaker system by default. If you prefer to join over the phone, just select the telephone in the audio pane and the dial information will be displayed. Or if you're using your headset, you can do that too. You can type in any questions into the question control panel during the presentation, and they will be addressed at the end of the presentation. Unless Sheila, sometimes the presenters will take a break and see if there's any questions during that time as well. So before I turn over to Sheila for our presentation, I'd just like to remind everyone about some resources for the Nevada 21 educators. When you visit the nr21.ctl.net website, you can learn about upcoming professional learning opportunities. You can sign up for updates about new events, information. You can join our Google Plus private community for the Nevada 21 educators. I would now like to introduce Sheila Crawford-Bunch, the Director of Education at NCLab. Sheila is a teacher dedicated to bringing STEM, including coding and 3D modeling, to all students. She has worked in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics for over 30 years before becoming an educator. She supports teachers and develops essential resources such as lesson plan, course mappings, and alignment with Common Core standards and NGSS. All right, so now she's going to take us through some great features that NCLab offers. So I am going to turn this over to Sheila, so you can take yourself off mute, and I'm going to make you the presenter.
All right. Okay, so hopefully everybody sees my screen okay. Is that looking good?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to switch gears a bit today. We looked at the coding courses in the second webinar, the Carol course, and there is another coding course that's Tina Turtle, which develops the Python language, still gives that beautiful visual connection by drawing pictures. This course, the 3D modeling course, is really starting to work on some visual spatial skills. So here we go. All right. Where it's uses a program called Plasm, which teaches constructive solid geometry. Oh, that sounds like a mouthful. When you think of it, though, this is what manufacturing is based on. You make a design, you send it to a set of machines, and they build it. Everything is built in 3 dimensions, and everything is composed of basic shapes. So why is this important? How does the course work, and how can it be integrated into the classroom? These are the questions we're going to be looking at today as we go through the course. All right, so one of our main goals is to get our students ready for professional computer-aided design. There's lots of really great software programs on the market. They're typically fairly expensive because they're designed for professionals. And they also don't dive too deeply into the underlying code. They're menu driven, so if you're going to design something, you drop it down from a menu, you drag it into your model. But there are a tremendous number of tools, and it's overwhelming for students if they don't have a good understanding of the basic geometry involved. This little picture on the side here is a model that was built by one of our students using our software. So you can see that you can build some pretty sophisticated models. So they're going to be more successful if they get that visual spatial reasoning underlying what they need to do in the programs. And that involves learning how to move, rotate, scale objects, subtract objects, and other essential solid geometry skills. And you'll see what I mean here in a moment. And also how to build complex designs from simple ones. So here's some examples. This is a shape, a teepee that's built actually from a cone by changing the cone characteristics. Here's a DNA model that's built using a simple set of bars and then running them up a spiral. And over here is a three-dimensional Tetris, which is quite fun to work with. But boy, that really stretches your understanding of rotation and movement when you try and fit the pieces together. All right, so this is the other main reason why we're doing this is jobs. You think of the companies that are moving into Nevada, they want their technicians to have a solid foundation in these skills. So here's some examples. Manufacturing. You might be building a prototype or you might be on the production line, but you're going to be using those skills either way. If you go into entertainment, animation is a huge component of entertainment. Think of all the movies you've watched recently, whether they're realistic or cartoons. They use computer graphics. This is also used to train people. It's used in sales. It's used in forensics to model what might have happened. And then if we look at science, we model things all the time, whether it's a molecule to a large-scale model of the universe. In engineering, we build models and test them. So, and this is something that you can do even in a simple software like ours. You can build a model and test limits on it. Architecture is definitely built up of simple geometric components. Think about operating drones in 3D space. You're moving them in different directions, up, down, tilting them, rotating them, and so forth. Art, very definitely, when you're building models especially in production art, you're going to be using some of these manufacturing components, but you also might want to design on your tablet something that you're going to build manually. So this could be used in sculpture, pottery, or painting. And certainly there are many artists that stay strictly in the computer mode, produce beautiful results. Medicine, surgery these days, doctors are going in with cameras and working on organs within the body in 3 dimensions. And you can think of the old medicine, people worked on cadavers. Well, they don't do that so much anymore. They use 3D software to train on what they're going to be doing on real humans. So many career fields use 3D modeling, and there's plenty more besides the examples I've listed here. Okay, so it's fun. It's a fun way to learn. It helps you visualize mathematical concepts, and students really enjoy building their own creations. So here's some examples of models that were built in the software and then fabricated on a 3D printer. There's a Colosseum, there's a functional gear, and there's a beautiful flower. So there's architecture, there's engineering, and art. All right, so last time we looked at Carol, And the screen for 3D modeling is very similar. You're typing code on the left-hand side, and then when you run it, you produce a model on the right-hand side. So you get instant feedback for anything that you script. The script builds language, it builds logic, it's writing and math, and the model on the right, that's what the results are going to look like. So you're working with multiple areas in the brain, both sides if you like to use those terms. And this is powerful for building all these senses that we want in our kids, their math senses and their visual spatial senses. So why do we use script to build models? We could just go to that drag and drop menu. Well, there's several reasons. It's surprisingly easy to write, read, and edit. So this script here says S equals sphere, and then in parentheses 2, then there's the word show and S, and that's what it's doing. We can read it. We can say the object S is a sphere with radius 2, show S in a viewer. Bingo, there's our sphere. So it's actually very easy to write, and then if you want to make a bigger sphere or a smaller sphere, you just change that number, and this is where it starts. Okay, so I played with the sphere a little bit. I changed it to a shell, which is a hollow sphere, and then I added some values to the shell. There's your inner diameter, or inner radius and outer radius, and I changed the sphere to 12 facets. I colored it raspberry. There's color, S is my object, raspberry is the color, and then I erased the chunk of it so that we only see half. I added a wooden cylinder, moved it into position, and now I have my little umbrella. That's only 7 lines of script. And again, these numbers are easy to play with, to change it. So it's a lot of fun to work with. Students really love making stuff with the program. It's fun. So what are they learning? They're learning keyboarding, they're learning English and math, they're learning how to code, and this is pretty realistic. They're creating and modifying programs just like real developers. All right, so let's sort of sum up what we've talked about so far. We want students to be competent and comfortable with advanced tools when they enter into the workforce. So in 3D modeling, they're learning constructive solid geometry, and it's based on these fundamental understandings. Shapes are built with geometric parameters, so you think of that sphere command, we only have one parameter to begin with, and that's the radius, and we build from there. Shapes interact with each other to form new shapes, and they can be modified in many ways. So when we made our umbrella, we cut that shell in half. Shapes are positioned using transformations. So this is, if you teach geometry, you're very familiar with this term. That includes translation, rotation, and reflection. And we're working in 3 dimensions. So we do a lot of that in the course. This is really going to help the students understand these basic geometric concepts. And they'll understand that even when they go to use those menu-driven programs, there's some pretty serious scripted coding. This will make them confident and pretty sophisticated. So let's look at the course itself. What are the students going to learn? They start with 2D. So in Unit 1, they're learning basic commands, and there's a square command over there. They're very readable, easy to type. The course is set up to be fun and informative, so we have themes on each level. It starts out with pirates. You'll see down here there's a mining truck. It uses board games to teach a lot of the movements, and some geography. These are fun context for the models. By the end of the unit, they're going to be able to script many different 2D shapes, move them in the XY plane, so that's 2 dimensions, subtract and combine them to form complex composite models, and then extrude them to 3D. Extrude is a very simple command. It just makes a plate out of this design, so they can even start printing any of these objects right from the beginning. When we go to Unit 2, now they're starting to rotate things in 2 dimensions, and this looks very familiar to anybody who's played Tetris. Tetris is a great way to intuitively learn how to rotate and move objects. But of course, we're adding the scripting piece, so they're actually assigning numbers to that. By the end of that unit, they have learned how to create now 3D objects, such as cylinders and cones and tubes, and they're starting to learn some complex rotations in 3 dimensions. In Unit 3, now we're working with symmetry. We're erasing parts of objects, splitting them, and shrinking and stretching them. And this example here is actually a working 3D printable whistle. So you can see it's got some nice smooth shapes. They have to work out the openings. We've attached a hanger at the end, and inside, you can't see it here, there's a ball that makes the whistle work. By the end of the unit, they're able to alter the basic shapes and combine them to form complex objects. And they should be pretty comfortable with writing longer programs. They'll be writing 50, maybe even 100 lines at this point. And there's a set of nunchucks there. In Unit 4, we're really getting more into curved surfaces and spaces now. So this is working with spirals, and also bringing in Python lists so that they can learn how to use those to create repeating patterns. So that's what they're doing. They're exploiting those parameters of curved surfaces and using Python lists, and here we're building a railroad across a bridge. Okay, Unit 5, this is actually a very short unit. It's only 1 section long. They're learning about Bezier curves, and this is not in a complex mathematical way. It's simply using a point to pull a curve into a shape, and then they're using that to create shells and rotational shell solids and surfaces. So they should be able to create an object like this chess piece at the end. And that's the course in a nutshell. All right, so how are they going to learn this? Well, self-paced and self-graded means just that. You can use the course just by itself. There's always some form of context to give them ideas of where they could apply their skills. Every section has step-by-step videos showing them how to do it. There are a series of instructional screens that build in the understanding of what they're doing. There are demonstration levels where they might just run it or just add a simple piece of code. It's mostly done for them to see how it works. The sections are all scaffolded, so they start with something simple and build to more complex, and also start with a lot of the code written and move towards the students writing the code for themselves. There's a feature called the code template, which is a button. If they get really stuck, they can hit that button. It'll supply most of the code so they can fill in the blanks. You can see this from your teacher view, which students have used this and which have not. There's a drop-down help menu, which is a list of commands and has a textbook and videos that they can access at any time. We're going to look at this, see what this looks like in a moment here. When they submit a level, they'll always see how they did and get some feedback. And then this is something that should go live in a week or so. We now have quizzes at the end of each section, so that gives you some formative assessment. And then Creative Suite, they can practice the skills they've learned and make their very own objects. Okay, so I'm going to show you one level to see how this works. This is 12.4, and this is where they're learning how to erase parts of objects to create new ones. So here's our context. The opening screen provides some fun facts about skateboards because the object they're going to be building is a skateboard ramp. This is going to be very good for your English language learners. If they don't understand the context, it's kind of hard to visualize what they're building. So there's a bit of background on skateboards and some history. And then at the next screen it states the objective and provides an example. So here's a tube, and they're showing what happens when you erase half the tube and you get this shape here. And then there's a second example provided. In this case, we've erased it in half again, so now we have a quarter. And then the next screen is the video. So students would then watch this video to see how to do this whole process. I've found when I go to visit classrooms, sometimes the first two lessons they don't watch the video, and after that they watch them really carefully. So they learn pretty quickly that they need to pay attention. This is the model that they're going to be putting the ramp inside this stand here. So the stand's already built. And again, that's providing context so you can see the shape. All right, so now they get to try the code themselves. On the left, you can see what the screen looks like without the code template. So they're actually writing a lot of the code, or just about all the code, actually. You can't see it because the writing's really small, but in the upper left, most of the numbers are provided and the instructions are pretty explicit. This really is a guided practice. If they have trouble with that, even with all that guidance from the top screen, they can use the code template, which is the red button at the bottom, and it'll pop up this, so it becomes fill in the blanks. So that's going to help your students who are maybe not very confident or they are struggling for some reason. They can use the code template. All right, after they submit it, they're going to get some feedback. I made some deliberate mistakes in here, so it popped up this box on the left. It said try again. It explained why it didn't work. And then on the picture side, it shows what I drew in red. There's my tube way over here. It's way too big and it's in the wrong spot. And it also shows what it should look like in green. So I get a visual feedback as well on how it was supposed to work and why it didn't work. All right, so this is how the course is built. They're learning one level at a time. And right now the 3D modeling course is divided into 5 units. Units 1 to 4 have 5 sections, and you can think of a section as a concept arc. Each section has 7 instructional levels, then a quiz level, and a project level. And project is where they can design their own set of objects or objects based on what they've learned. And that gives you a performance task that you can evaluate if that's what you need for grades. So the levels each represent one step of instruction or practice within the concept arc. By the end of 7 levels, hopefully, if they've got it. This is systematic instruction. It's practice with a gradual release, and there's 234 levels in all, so it's very gradual. For teachers, how do I monitor and assess my students? You've got this great tool called My Students. And when you open your version of the software, it's this button here. It says My Students. And this is what you'll see. I've hidden the names, but this is an example from a real class. They took 3D Modeling 1. And you can see which students used the code template. You see this little red mark behind the green check mark. So you know that they used the code template. And you can see which students worked without it. This is a good tool to maybe review certain areas. If you see a lot of kids are using the code template in one area, you might want to stop and have a class discussion about it. And you can also click on any of these levels. It'll tell you how many points they earned for that level. The points are based on the number of lines of code that they wrote and if they met the objectives of the level. So generally speaking, less lines is better code, and they get bonus points for that. And if they didn't use the code template, there's an incentive to get more points. So, how do you monitor and assess your students? This is a piece here. These are the performance tasks. They're called art projects. They're at the end of each section. This is an example of some student code. They built themselves a smartphone, and they build those and can actually save the code in Creative Suite so that they can work on it later. They can share it. They can publish it, and they can export these to a 3D printer for printing. There's also one other assessment. It's on the main page of our website, and you can use it as a pre and post assessment. The 2D assessment is considered a pre-assessment, and the 3D assessment is the post. So if you're collecting data and you want to see their growth, have them take the pre-test before they start the course, and then the post-test afterwards, and it'll give you some numbers to work with. All right, so how can you fit this in your curriculum? I'm going to start at the bottom first. If you just want to try this out and don't have a context, set up a club. It's a great relaxing way to start becoming familiar with the software. There's no need for grading. Kids are more relaxed. So if you don't know where to fit it in a course, start it as a club. Maybe next semester you'll be ready to integrate it into your curriculum. And remember that the students can log on anywhere. So they could go work at the library, or you could be working with your parent teachers, maybe have a coding weekend or a service club. They might want to enter something in a science fair. Skills USA have modeling competitions. NCLab does too. So there are lots of ways you can do it as a club. And we do have a camp guide on our website if you want to get some ideas on how to run a camp, say during spring break or on the weekend. You can tag it on to a core class. This is something I did with my students when I was teaching. After they did their math assignments to my demanding standards and had helped each other, they could grab a laptop, go on NCLab, and their favorite thing to do was 3D modeling. I also noticed that I think it had an impact on their geometry scores. A lot of our high math students are good at algebra and calculations. Sometimes they're a little weak on geometry, and it's hard to move them, get those growth numbers for those students. I found this really helped my high students improve their geometry and measurement skills. You could use it as a center. We have some teachers teaching courses with other topics, drones, robotics, animation, and so forth. And sometimes you don't have enough computers to go around, so you can always put your students on NCLab on a set of computers while other kids are working on hands-on type of projects. You can use it as a main course. It is rigorous, it's complete, it's self-paced, it's self-graded. Run it for 5 weeks and watch a few miracles happen. And maybe when the kids hit high school, they'll choose one of the CTE tracks and graduate with some pretty impressive job skills. So these are ways you can always contact NCLab by email, by phone. If you want a hangout meeting, we're happy to do that, especially if you're maybe have some questions about your computer. Maybe something's not working the way you want it to. We can look at your screen and see what's going on. We're happy to arrange live trainings. We do have one coming up on March 4th. It's a Saturday. It's a one-day training called Introduction to NCLab, and it really talks about game-based learning, which we are, and give you tons of hands-on practice so you can feel what it's like to learn these courses. If we want to put together a webinar, we certainly can do that. If you come up with a topic you think would be good for all involved. We do put out a new monthly newsletter. We'd be happy to add you to our email list for that, or you can always find it on our blog on our website. And then again, there's always things we forget about. You can tell us what you would like to see. So this is a little quote from Dave Brandkamp. We've had just a wonderful working relationship with people at the state and county levels. And he's the director in charge of standards and instructional support. And he's just making that point that our industries are changing, whether they're introduced or established. There's a ton of tech involved, and we want to train our kids to be ready for that. Here's our contact information at the bottom. You can always get support at NCLab and call our 800 number, or you can call the direct line, and we'll be happy to help you in any way. So I ran through that a little quickly, but do we have any questions?
Sheila, this is great. Walter has come on and he says he has a few different questions, so I will turn it over to Walter to ask a few questions.
All right,
Thanks.
great. Hi, Walter.
Hi. Um, got a question here from somebody that was, how long does it typically take for an average student to get through, say, that beginning to kind of a concept of time that we're looking
Okay.
at, I think.
Great. Well, let me scroll back to those sections here because it's one of those things where they start fast and then they start slowing down. So, and that's okay because sometimes, depending on what your objectives are as a teacher, uh, they'll benefit from being introduced to it and playing with it a little bit, and they'll certainly benefit from going through the whole course. But as we know, this is new. Um, uh, Students come in with all kinds of backgrounds. So well, let's take a look at this anyway. I would say Unit 1, they can get through pretty quickly. It's very basic and the commands are easy to write. Most students would get through this in, a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Okay. And same thing. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Amy. Can I interrupt? So
Uh-huh.
what does a couple weeks mean? So they have, typically if it's a seventh grade or eighth grade student, they've got 6 periods a day to seven. So if they spend 1 period a day on NC Lab unit or in their math class,
Okay,
that
yeah,
should
yeah,
be,
that's a little vague, isn't it? A week. Well,
yeah.
let's say they had their STEM for 3 hours a week. Yeah, I would think that 6 hours would probably do it for Unit 1. And then I think you can start adding to that as they go on. Especially when they're learning these rotations, these sections alternate between some really tough math and then we get to play and build stuff. So when they're doing the really tough math stuff, they slow down, maybe get a little frustrated, but then it pays off in the next section where they get to build things. So I think probably you can add half as much time again each time they go up a unit. So, and especially since we've got the quizzes in there and they're building art projects, you want them to spend a little time on the project so that they practice what they've learned. So, yes, you could make this fill a full semester, especially if you add student journals and other activities, maybe a group project, or maybe have them apply it to a STEM subject area. Um,
That's good.
yeah, yeah, and Yes, some of this stuff is pretty advanced, but it depends on what skills they're coming in with. I think as our students grow, they'll have had a little more experience with, say, basic coding, and then the coding's not so intimidating.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and
Question.
so sorry, I'll just finish off that
Okay,
because
okay.
if you have a high level student, that's great. Have them build stuff. They will be entertained for hours and hours and hours because building the sky is the limit. Okay.
No, you said it exactly. The question I had was in the teachers seeing where the students at, does that keep track of how long they've actually been on the site or coding? I didn't check that.
Not in 3D. We do show in Carol and Tina, it shows how long they've spent on each level. But right now on 3D, it just shows that they've completed it and how many points they got. So, but you're seeing all your students at the same time, so you can tell, some of them have they're almost finished this level. There's one student here that only has 4 more units, and they'll be finished that first unit. 4 more, sorry, levels, and they'll be finished that next unit. And you have another student back here who's less than halfway through. So,
Another question came is you were when we were in this say a couple students have an issue and you want to do a class on it, the source material for the teacher to do that, where would they find that?
okay, this hasn't been published yet, but we should have it ready for the March 4th training. We're completely redoing the lesson plans so that they're a little easier to use. Each section has a 2-page lesson plan layout, and it includes all the links to the videos. It will include a link to a slideshow, so the slideshow could be thrown up on a smart board and gone through the steps. Certainly you can go back. One of the ways I did it was put up one of the YouTube videos and pause it periodically and discuss the steps that have been taken to make sure people understand it. So, and then the other part, and I think this is going to really help too. This is something we designed for Carol and Tina, and we'll include this in the 3D support materials, our student journals. And these are offline. Each section has 4 pages, and the first 2 pages are first recall questions, then a place to take notes, then a couple of application questions. And then the third page is a bulletin board where they can just post ideas that they get, or maybe cool links that they found or whatever. And the fourth page is a place where they can sketch out what they want to build. So that slows kids down too. I think sometimes when kids are online all the time, they get a little bit hypnotized. And if you pull them offline to take notes, that I think improves their retention quite a bit.
Excellent, excellent. Another question came and it kind of refers to what you've been talking about, maybe advanced student, is coding outside of what the lesson needs from them. Say they want to do something now that they've got a good concept down, they want to do something on their own.
Oh,
How is
absolutely.
that?
Okay. They go, I don't have my NCLab open. I can open it if you like,
Oh,
but
I
basically it's in Creative Suite. So if they open Creative Suite, they'll see a modeling section and they select the 3D plasm modeling and they can build anything they want and save their files. So that's where they do
awesome.
it. Yeah.
The other one came off of it. Once they create something that they want to show off, you mention a sharing ability.
Yes. Yes. If you go to our website, and I think I will pull this up. So I'm going to switch screens here and go to NCLab. Okay, does this look, this is showing okay on your end?
Yes, perfect.
Okay. All right. On the free portal, there are galleries of student work. So I'm going to go to the free portal, and this is the gallery here, 3D models. And this is pretty cool too, because you can pull up the code. Okay, see, these are some of the things that kids have made. All right.
Perfect.
Okay, so you can submit a design to NCLab and we'll publish it. And so if I click on the drawing, it'll just display it in 3D space. If I click on the link, it'll actually open it and it'll show the code. So there's the code. And if I run it, and I'll just take a moment here.
Wow, that's really neat. I noticed that somebody made a CTL one.
Oh yeah, yeah, I wonder who did that. Okay. All right, so here we've got our figure that was made, and I can throw in the grid, so you can see how it sits on the planes and the 3D axes. So you can see how it's relating to the axes. And there's the code over here. I'm going to zoom in on this because you can really see how much geometry they're learning. They're learning their shapes with the parameters. They're moving them with rotations and move commands, and then they're combining them. And it's neat stuff. And this program is 112 lines long to make this figure. And so yes, you can see how they could be entertained for a long time. The other thing you can do with kids who get it quickly, they become student teachers or student mentors, aides for your class. And yeah, you don't want to exploit that all the time, but you'd be surprised. Sometimes it's not always the same students who master something. I did that a lot in my math class, and we did it on a daily basis. If you had got it, then you were now a mentor for the other kids. And boy, some of those struggling students, when they got it, they were so proud to be a mentor for someone else. So it isn't always the same old kids who are mentors for each concept area. But yes, and this is something I think that would encourage the students is to look at some of these drawings and see how they're built with code. And yep, they can build anything they want, and the files stay with them even when they aren't in the course anymore. And it's theirs forever.
Good. Actually, that was the you handled a lot of the questions that came through were questions you asked on your different sections there. So excellent job. And so Amy, I think we're done with the questions unless you got one that came in.
No, nope. I think we've covered quite a bit. I think we let people know this was going to be around 45 minutes. So unless Sheila, if you have anything else, I'll start in my closing.
Yeah, just want to encourage people in the Las Vegas area to come and sign up for the live training we're going to do on the 4th. It is a Saturday, but we will feed you lunch, and it should be fun. So,
Well, I can follow up. Can you put on your screen your last slide of your information and your
yes,
website?
there we go.
So basically, everybody that's an NR21 staff member through the grant, the coaches and state coaches will be mailing out to all the teachers by next week a registration flyer for NCLab workshop going to be happening Saturday, March 4th, and everyone's invited, and there'll be lunch provided, and it's free, and I believe they are in the process of getting some CE credits as well. So more information will be sent in your email box, so check your email box. All right, well, let me switch back over screens. Thank you, Sheila.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure. And I love to work with people, so please feel free to contact me.
Definitely. All right, I think my screen should be showing now. All right, well, thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, or if you're watching this at a later date on the recording. If you have any other questions, you can contact me at the email address you see on the screen once you leave today's webinar. You may receive a certificate of completion by visiting the link that you see on your screen, so you don't have to memorize it. It'll be emailed to you And you have to fill out the survey in order to receive the certificate, though. So that helps us gauge the effectiveness of our webinars, and so that we can improve them as we go through this. And we would love to hear your feedback as well. So please don't forget to visit our nr21.ctail.net website for more news and information, in our Nevada Ready Google Plus page as well. And a link to the recording of today's webinar will be emailed within 24 to 48 hours. And you'll find the recording of part 1, 2, and 3 on the series on our website as well. So on behalf of CTL and our presenter, Sheila, thank you for joining us today, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everyone.